The sky above Geneva was alight with stars that seemed brighter than usual, as though the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Commander Adrian Voss stood at the observation deck of the Arctic Strategic Command Center, his fingers curled around a steaming cup of black coffee. The icy air inside the subterranean bunker bit at his skin, but he barely noticed. He was thinking of his daughter, Isla, who had begged him not to take another deployment just weeks ago. Her voice echoed in his mind. "Promise me you'll come home this time, Dad." Before he could dwell further, a red warning light flooded the room, bathing the walls in an ominous glow. Sirens blared. Adrian's coffee hit the floor, shattering into shards. "Status report," Adrian barked, his voice a whip cracking through the cacophony. Lieutenant Hana Kimura sprinted across the room, her boots skidding slightly on the metal floor. "Commander, we've got unidentified objects entering low Earth orbit. Initial scans indicate 17 vessels." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of implications she couldn't yet articulate. Adrian moved swiftly to the central console, his shadow stretching long under the pulsing emergency lights. The display flickered to life, showing a live feed from the International Space Station. He froze. 17 monolithic ships hung above the Earth like grim gods, their metallic hulls shimmering with a sickly green luminescence. Each was shaped like a spearhead, their edges sharp enough to carve the night sky itself. No insignia, no markings, just cold, alien intent. "Magnify," Adrian ordered. The screen zoomed in, revealing pulsating seams along the ship's surfaces as if they were alive. "They're moving into geosynchronous orbit over major population centers," Hana reported, her hands dancing over her console. "Beijing, New York, Delhi, they're covering the globe." A voice crackled through the comms. "Commander Voss, this is General Leclerc from Paris HQ. We need you to confirm. Is this hostile?" Adrian's jaw tightened as he studied the feed. His instincts roared, primal and unyielding. "Hostile? They're not here to deliver flowers, General." Seconds later, every screen in the room went dark. Then, one by one, they flickered back on, displaying the same image. A grotesque alien figure. Its face was a nightmare of angles and scales, like a predator sculpted from stone. Its eyes burned yellow, unblinking, radiating an intelligence colder than the Arctic wind outside. When it spoke, the voice was deep, guttural, and impossibly clear, as though it had studied humanity's languages for centuries. "People of Earth," it began, each syllable like the toll of a funeral bell. "We are the Zorth Collective. You have been deemed unstable and unfit to wield power in this galaxy. Surrender your governments and resources. We will reshape your world for the better." Adrian clenched his fists so hard, his nails bit into his palms. "Mute the transmission," he growled, but Hana hesitated. "They've overridden all global networks," she said. "Every screen on the planet is showing this." The alien's message continued. "You have 24 hours to comply. Non-compliance will result in termination of your species." Adrian stepped back, letting the weight of the words settle over the room. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the hum of equipment. "Lieutenant," he said at last, his voice low and deliberate, "bring up the tactical grid. I want to know what we're dealing with now." Hana nodded, her fingers blurring over the console. "Sir, initial readings show they've got shields, energy-based, and those ships—" She paused, her voice faltering for the first time. "They're each the size of a city block. Whatever powers them is off the charts." Adrian exhaled through his nose, his mind already racing. "They've made a mistake. They think humanity will just roll over. They don't know us." Hana glanced at him. "Sir, they've wiped out our satellite defenses in under 2 minutes. We don't have the infrastructure to mount a coordinated counterattack." Adrian turned to her, his piercing gray eyes locking onto hers. "Then we adapt. That's what we do." At that moment, the ground beneath them trembled, a low, guttural rumble that grew into a deafening roar. The screens flashed red as seismic readings spiked. "Impact detected," Hana shouted. "South America, Chile, they've hit a civilian target." Adrian's breath caught. "Casualties. Initial estimates," her voice cracked, 2 million. The room seemed to shrink as Adrian processed the number. He closed his eyes briefly, as if to contain the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. What about military installations? They're striking them systematically, Hana replied, her voice steadying. Their targeting is surgical. Precision strikes on hardened sites. Adrian slammed his fist onto the console. They've been watching us. They know exactly where to hit. General Leclerc's voice cut through the comms again. Commander Voss, we're initiating global evacuation protocols. Civilian priority. Adrian gritted his teeth. Evacuation to where, General? There's no place on Earth they can't reach. Leclerc hesitated. Then what do you propose? Adrian's gaze hardened. We go underground, regroup. They may have the skies, but we'll own the shadows. Moments later, Adrian addressed the command center staff, his voice calm but resolute. Listen up. This isn't a war we win in a day, a week, or even a year, but it's a war we will win. They've underestimated us, and that's their first mistake. Hana looked at him. And their second? He gave a grim smile. Thinking we fight fair. Hours later, as Earth plunged into chaos, Adrian stood in the war room, watching the destruction unfold on the monitors. Cities burned, and screams filled the airwaves. But amid the devastation, he saw something else. Firefighters rescuing survivors from rubble, medics tending to the wounded in makeshift triages, neighbors helping each other escape the flames. A faint ember of defiance flickered in his chest. They don't understand what they've started, he thought. We'll show them what it means to survive. As the first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the bunker's reinforced walls, Hana approached him with a tablet. Commander, you're going to want to see this. She handed it to him, and his brow furrowed as he scanned the data. This is from one of their debris fields? Yes, she said. It's incomplete, but it's enough. I think we've found the first crack in their armor. Adrian's lips curled into a rare smile, cold and fierce. Then let's get to work. Outside, the world smoldered. Inside, humanity's fightback had just begun. The bunker's atmosphere felt heavier in the hours after Adrian had declared their first step toward retaliation. The stale, metallic tang of recycled air clung to everything. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed oppressive. As Adrian studied the fragment of alien technology Hana had salvaged, his mind churned with the weight of what they were up against. The piece, no larger than a human hand, pulsed faintly with green light, a heartbeat of alien engineering. It felt alive in his palm, its surface almost too smooth to be natural, like water frozen mid-motion. Dr. Marchand, Adrian called, his voice slicing through the tense quiet. The physicist appeared from behind a stack of equipment. Her thick glasses glinted in the harsh light as she adjusted her lab coat. Commander, if this fragment is what I think it is, we may have a way to disrupt their shields. Adrian gestured for her to continue. Speak plainly. What are we looking at? Dr. Marchand held the fragment up to the light, its eerie glow reflecting in her sharp eyes. This material, this organism, is symbiotic. It's not just a part of their technology. It is their technology. The energy signature suggests it operates on frequency modulations that shift continuously, making it incredibly hard to penetrate. Hard, Adrian said, folding his arms, but not impossible. Marchand hesitated. It's like trying to punch through a wall that keeps moving its weak spot. But if we can predict the pattern... She trailed off, her excitement barely masking the underlying terror. Adrian nodded. How long do you need? Too long, she admitted. But with more fragments or access to intact tech, we could expedite... An alarm wailed, cutting her off. Hana appeared in the doorway, her breath visible in the cold air as she shouted, Commander, they've launched ground forces. The war room screens flickered to life, displaying grainy footage from the surface. What appeared to be humanoid figures descended from alien ships, their forms wreathed in glistening armor that shimmered like liquid mercury. Each step they took made the earth tremble, seismic ripples spreading like scars. Adrian clenched his jaw. The sight was worse than he'd feared. The aliens weren't just machines of war. They were sculptures of fear itself, crafted to demoralize. Hana pointed to the screen, her voice cold. They're targeting urban centers. Civilians are scattering, but They're hurting them. Adrian's stomach twisted. They're capturing survivors? Dr. Martian's face went pale. It's not capture. It's control. They're eliminating resistance by breaking our spirit. Adrian slammed a fist onto the console. Not on my watch. He turned to Hana. Get Major Riker on comms. I want his squad in the air now. We need to give the civilians a chance to retreat underground. Yes, sir, she said, sprinting to her station. Moments later, Major Cole Riker's voice crackled through the speakers, laced with his trademark cocky bravado. Voss, tell me you're finally letting us off the leash. Don't get cocky, Riker, Adrian replied, his tone sharper than usual. This isn't a rescue mission, it's a diversion. Your job is to keep those tin men looking up while we get civilians to safety. Riker chuckled. Understood. Let's see how these alien bastards like human ingenuity. Adrian's attention shifted back to the tactical grid. The alien forces moved with mechanical precision, their formations flawless, their responses immediate. Yet they operated with a predictability that made Adrian's mind race. They think they're unstoppable, he muttered to himself. But even a machine breaks under the right pressure. Hours later, Hana's team moved under the cover of darkness through the ruins of a once bustling city. The air was thick with ash, the acrid stench of burnt metal and flesh clogging every breath. Glass crunched underfoot, and the distant echo of alien boots sent chills racing up her spine. She motioned for her team to halt, her hand trembling ever so slightly. Ahead, in the flickering glow of a toppled street lamp, 2 alien soldiers stood, their towering forms radiating menace. Their armor seemed to ripple in the dim light, each movement unnervingly smooth. Hana pressed her back against the cold, jagged edge of a concrete wall. She signaled silently to her team. Wait. Her breathing slowed, each exhale forming small clouds in the frigid night. She reached into her pack and withdrew a small device, a prototype designed by Marchand's team. It emitted a low-frequency pulse that scrambled nearby electronics. If it worked, it might disrupt the aliens' helmets for a critical few seconds. If it didn't, no time to doubt. With a flick of her wrist, she tossed the device into the street. It landed with a faint clink, drawing the aliens' attention. For a moment, they froze, their helmets whirring as if recalibrating. Now, she hissed. Her team opened fire, the bullets striking weak points Hana had memorized from hours of studying footage. Sparks erupted, and one alien soldier fell to its knees, green ichor leaking from its exposed joint. The other spun toward them, its weapon glowing with an unholy light, but Hana was already moving, darting forward with a knife glinting in her hand. She drove the blade into the alien's neck, a spray of viscous fluid soaking her gloves. Clear, she whispered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Back at the bunker, Adrian paced the war room, his boots echoing on the metal floor. Each report that came in carried news of destruction, but also small victories. Riker's team had successfully drawn fire away from an evacuation zone. Hana's squad had taken down a patrol unit. Still, it wasn't enough. The aliens were too coordinated, too powerful. Every human loss felt like another stone added to the weight on Adrian's shoulders. Dr. Marchand entered, her expression grim but determined. Commander, we've found something. He stopped pacing. Go on. She placed a holographic projector on the table. A green grid appeared, displaying a 3-dimensional model of the alien shield system. Their shields cycle through frequencies every 15 seconds. It's how they maintain their energy efficiency. If we can time an attack to hit when the frequency shifts, we can get through. Adrian studied the projection. How do we time it? We're working on a pulse emitter that can synchronize with their shifts, Marchand replied. But we need more fragments to refine the calibration. Adrian nodded. Then we'll get you what you need. He turned to Hana, who had just entered, her gear still smeared with alien fluid. Lieutenant, I want a scouting team to recover fragments from their next patrol routes. It'll be dangerous, but it's our best shot. Hana nodded without hesitation. We'll get it done. The room fell silent as the team dispersed to their tasks. Adrian returned to the observation deck, staring out at the desolate landscape beyond the bunker. The stars above no longer felt like beacons of hope. They were a battlefield waiting to be claimed. "Let them think we're broken," Adrian muttered to the cold night. "We're just getting started." The Arctic bunker's war room was quieter than usual. The team huddled around the main display, its flickering holograms casting ghostly shadows across their tense faces. Commander Adrian Voss leaned forward, his fingers splayed across the edge of the table as he studied the pulsating green waveform Dr. Marchand had brought to life. "This is it," Marchand said, her voice taut with both excitement and exhaustion. "The alien shield patterns. They shift every 15 seconds, just as we suspected. During that shift, there's a window, less than half a second, when their energy dips. It's small, but it's enough." Adrian's gaze didn't waver. "Enough for what?" "To strike," she replied. "But the timing has to be perfect. If we're even a millisecond off—" She let the sentence hang, heavy as lead. Adrian straightened, the gears of his mind turning. "You're saying we have a chance?" Marchand nodded. "A slim one, but with the right equipment and coordination, we could take down one of their ships. Maybe more." The room was electric, the faint hum of the hologram amplifying the anticipation. Adrian's voice was low and commanding. "Then let's make it happen." Lieutenant Hana Kimura, standing at the periphery, stepped forward. "Sir, I'll lead the retrieval team for more fragments. We'll need every advantage if we're going to make this work." Adrian glanced at her, noting the weariness etched into her features. She'd been on every critical mission since the invasion began, and yet her resolve was unshaken. "You're the best we have for this, Lieutenant. Take whoever you need. Get it done." Hana gave a sharp nod, already mentally assembling her squad. She turned on her heel and vanished into the cold corridors of the bunker. Hours later, she and her team crouched in the ruins of a once thriving metropolitan area, the air heavy with the acrid stench of burnt concrete and melted steel. The distant wail of a crumbling building punctuated the unnatural silence. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Hana's gloved hand brushed against a fractured wall as she peered around a corner. The faint green glow of an alien patrol shimmered against the soot-streaked sky. "Visual on the patrol," she whispered into her comm. 5 targets, minimal armor, probably scouts." Private Lyle Carter, a wiry soldier with a quick trigger finger, responded. "Permission to engage, Lieutenant?" "Negative," Hana hissed. "We're not here to make noise. Hold position." The alien patrol moved with an eerie grace, their steps almost silent. Each of them carried a weapon that hummed faintly, emitting a sound that felt more alive than mechanical. Hana's eyes locked onto a small device one of the aliens carried, a spherical object pulsing with the same green light as the fragment they'd studied. "That's it," she murmured. "That's what we need." She signaled to her team, her movements precise and deliberate. They flanked the patrol, their footsteps muffled by the debris-laden ground. Hana counted the seconds in her head, timing the alien's every move. When the opportunity came, she struck. The first alien dropped before it could react, her blade slicing through its exposed joint with surgical precision. The second turned, its weapon charging, but Private Carter's shot pierced its neck, sending it sprawling. The remaining 3 scattered, their steps almost insect-like as they scuttled for cover. "Move!" Hana barked, her voice sharp as a whip crack. The squad surged forward, pinning the aliens down. The green glow of their weapons illuminated the battlefield, casting grotesque shadows on the ruined walls. One alien let out a guttural screech, a sound that reverberated in Hana's bones. It wasn't fear. It was a warning. "Lieutenant, we've got incoming," Carter shouted, pointing to the horizon. Hana turned to see reinforcements approaching, 6 more aliens, their forms blurred by the shimmering distortion of their shields. Time was running out. "Carter, grab the device," she ordered. "Everyone else, lay down suppressing fire." Bullets rained against the advancing aliens, ricocheting harmlessly off their shields. Hana's team moved with calculated precision, each step part of an unspoken rhythm. Carter lunged for the device, his fingers closing around it just as an alien weapon fired. The shot missed by inches, scorching the ground beside him. "Got it!" he yelled, retreating back toward the group. Hana's heart pounded as she signaled for extraction. The roar of an approaching dropship filled the air, its engines vibrating the ground beneath them. The squad scrambled aboard, the ramp closing just as the reinforcements arrived. The last thing Hana saw, before the door sealed, was the burning yellow gaze of an alien soldier, its expression unreadable but undeniably hostile. Back at the bunker, the tension was palpable as Dr. Marchand examined the retrieved device. She murmured to herself, her fingers deftly prying open its seamless surface. Adrian watched from a distance, his arms crossed, his face a mask of focus. "What are we looking at?" he asked finally. Marchand held up a small crystalline core, its glow pulsating like a heartbeat. This is their energy source. It's remarkably inefficient for something so advanced. They're brute-forcing their way through the laws of physics instead of refining them. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Can we use it?" Marchand smiled faintly, her first in days. "Not only can we use it, we can replicate it." The bunker buzzed with activity as the team worked tirelessly to integrate the alien tech into their prototype weapon. The resonance disruptor took shape, a sleek device no larger than a backpack, but humming with immense potential. Major Cole Riker arrived to oversee the field test, his usual swagger tempered by the gravity of the situation. "I don't like untested toys," Riker said, inspecting the device, "but I'll give it a spin if it means knocking these bastards out of the sky." Adrian clapped him on the shoulder. "This isn't a toy, Riker. It's a turning point." The test mission took place in the shadow of a mountain range, where an alien ship loomed above a decimated village. Riker piloted the lead aircraft, his squadron flanking him like hawks circling their prey. The disruptor's pulse synced with the alien shield frequency, its energy rippling through the air like an invisible wave. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the alien ship's shields flickered. Riker didn't hesitate. "Weapons free!" he shouted, unleashing a barrage of missiles. The ship shuddered under the impact, its hull splintering like glass. It crashed into the mountainside with a deafening roar, sending plumes of smoke and debris skyward. Cheers erupted over the comms, but Adrian's voice cut through them. "Celebrate later. They'll be coming for us now." Back at the bunker, the mood was a mix of relief and apprehension. They'd proven the disruptor worked, but they knew the aliens wouldn't take this lightly. As Adrian stared at the smoldering wreckage on the screen, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing into the aliens' hands. "They'll adapt," he murmured to himself. "Just like we are." Marchand approached, her expression grim. "Commander, I've been analyzing the wreckage. There's something you need to see." She brought up a schematic of the alien ship's core, highlighting an anomaly. This ship wasn't fully operational. It was a decoy. They wanted us to find it. Adrian's blood ran cold. Then what are they really planning? The answer, he knew, would determine whether humanity lived or died. The war room was alive with tension, the hum of equipment underscored by the murmurs of strategists and technicians. Adrian Voss stood motionless at the center, his eyes locked on the hologram that flickered before him, a detailed map of Earth's remaining strongholds and the alien fleet's positions. The revelation from Marchand that the destroyed alien ship had been a decoy gnawed at him. Every move they made was part of a larger game, one where the aliens had centuries of experience, and humanity was just learning the rules. "They're baiting us," Adrian said, breaking the tense silence. His voice was gravelly from lack of sleep, but it carried authority. The ship we destroyed was never meant to win the fight. It was meant to study how we fight. Dr. Marchand, standing beside him with her tablet glowing faintly in the dim light, nodded. "That's what worries me. They now know about the resonance disruptor. They'll adjust." Adrian's gaze flicked to the glowing markers representing alien ground forces on the map. "Then we don't give them time to adjust. If they're studying us, we make sure the lesson is chaos. We strike fast, hard, and in ways they can't predict." Major Cole Riker leaned against the table, his flight jacket stained with oil and ash. "You've got my team. Just point us where to punch a hole." Adrian shook his head. "This isn't about brute force, Riker. It's about precision. We need to make them believe we're going for their weak points while we target their heart." Hana Kimura stepped forward, her voice steady. "And where exactly is their heart, Commander?" Adrian glanced at Marchand, who tapped her screen, bringing up a 3D model of a massive alien ship in orbit. Its structure was more intricate than the others, with pulsating energy veins that glowed a faint green. "This," Marchand said, her tone grim, "is their flagship. All data flows through it. It's not just a command vessel, it's a nerve center. If we take it out, we don't just cripple their fleet, we sever their coordination entirely." Riker let out a low whistle. "That thing's the size of a city. You're saying we've got to hit that?" "Yes," Adrian said. "But it's not going to be a straightforward assault. They'll expect us to throw everything we have at it. Instead, we hit them where they don't expect it first, on the ground." The room fell silent as Adrian stepped to the map, his finger tracing a path from a cluster of alien bases to the flagship's orbit. "They're using ground stations to generate the energy fields protecting their fleet," he explained. "We take out those stations, their shields go down. Then, Riker, your squadron leads the orbital assault while Hana infiltrates the flagship and plants an EMP pulse device to disable their systems. Timing will be everything." Hana's expression remained impassive, but her jaw tightened. "We're talking simultaneous strikes across the globe. We'll need coordination we've never attempted before." Adrian's voice dropped, the weight of the plan settling over him. "We've got one shot. If we fail, humanity doesn't get another chance." Hours later, the team was scattered across multiple launch points, the faint hum of engines filling the underground hangar, as soldiers prepared for the largest coordinated offensive in human history. The air was thick with the scent of grease and ozone, and the low murmurs of troops were tinged with both fear and determination. Hana adjusted the straps of her infiltration gear, her movements precise. Beside her, Private Lyle Carter checked his rifle, the tension visible in the tightness of his shoulders. "You ready for this?" Hana asked, her voice low. Carter glanced at her, a flicker of nervous energy in his eyes. "I'd be lying if I said yes. But I'd rather die fighting than waiting to be wiped out." Hana nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Stick to the plan and we'll come out of this alive." Overhead, Riker's voice crackled through the comms. "Ground teams, this is Phantom Leader. We're in position, waiting on your go." Adrian's voice cut through the channel like steel. "All teams, begin the operation." Across the globe, the counteroffensive erupted in unison. In the dense jungles of South America, strike teams moved with ghostly precision, their boots crunching against undergrowth as they planted charges at alien energy stations. The scent of damp earth mixed with the acrid smoke of burning foliage as explosions lit up the night sky. In the deserts of North Africa, Riker's squadron roared across the heavens, their jets streaking through the air like predatory birds. Alien anti-aircraft fire illuminated the darkness, but the human pilots danced through the barrage with razor-sharp skill. Hana's team, meanwhile, crept through the labyrinthine corridors of the flagship. The air inside was stifling, thick with a chemical tang that clung to their throats. The walls pulsed faintly, as though the ship itself were alive, its bioluminescent veins casting eerie shadows. "Stay sharp," Hana whispered, her voice barely audible over the low hum of alien machinery. As they approached the core, the sound of alien footsteps echoed from a nearby corridor. Hana raised her hand, signaling the team to halt. She pressed herself against the cold, slick wall, her heart pounding. The aliens passed by, their distorted voices reverberating through the hall. Hana exhaled slowly, her breath fogging in the frigid air. "Clear," she whispered, motioning for the team to move. They reached the core chamber, a cavernous space filled with pulsating green light. The energy emanating from the central node was almost palpable, a thrumming pulse that resonated in their chests. Hana withdrew the EMP pulse device from her pack, its surface cool and smooth against her fingers. "Planting now," she said, her voice steady despite the tension coiled in her muscles. Just as she secured the device, an alarm blared. The walls vibrated with the sound, a deafening roar that sent a chill down her spine. "They know we're here," Carter said, his voice tight with fear. Hana's mind raced. "Hold position. Buy me time to finish the sequence." The team formed a defensive perimeter, their weapons trained on the entrances as alien soldiers poured in. The air was filled with the acrid scent of plasma fire and the metallic tang of blood as the team fought desperately to hold the line. "Done!" Hana shouted, slamming the activation switch. The device hummed to life, its energy rippling outward in invisible waves. Above the Earth, Riker's squadron unleashed their payload, their missiles striking the now vulnerable flagship. Explosions rippled across its surface, sending plumes of debris spiraling into the void. Inside, Hana's team sprinted through the collapsing corridors, the ship's structural integrity failing under the onslaught. The floor buckled beneath their feet, the heat of the core melting the air around them. "Hurry!" Hana shouted, her lungs burning as they reached the extraction point. The dropship doors slammed shut behind them just as the flagship erupted in a blinding flash of light. Back in the war room, Adrian watched the destruction unfold on the monitors, his expression grim but resolute. Martian stood beside him, her face pale but determined. "It worked," she said softly. Adrian didn't smile. "This was only the beginning. They'll regroup, and we'll be ready." The sky over Earth was a battlefield streaked with fire and smoke. The remnants of the alien flagship still burned in the upper atmosphere, raining molten debris that glowed like dying stars. Commander Adrian Voss stood in the war room, his shadow long against the flickering tactical display. The victory against the flagship should have brought relief, but his expression remained grim. "They're regrouping," Adrian said, his voice a low growl. "Their fleet is already repositioning in high orbit. They'll retaliate with everything they have." Dr. Marchand, her face pale and streaked with soot, pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "We've disrupted their command chain, but they still outnumber us 10-1. If they coordinate a full-scale strike, we won't survive." Adrian's knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the table. "Then we make sure they can't coordinate. We take the fight to them. If they think they've seen humanity's strength, they're wrong. We're just getting started." A silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant hum of machinery. The weight of his words settled on everyone present. Hana Kimura stepped forward, her face smeared with grime but her eyes unwavering. "What's the plan, sir?" she asked, her voice calm despite the storm brewing above. Adrian turned to the display where the alien fleet's positions were marked in pulsing red. "We hit their fleet, hard. Every ship, every outpost. We don't give them time to recover, but we can't do it alone. It's time to call in every favor, every ally." Marchand frowned. "Allies? Commander, with respect, no one else in this galaxy has dared to stand against the Zorth." "They will now," Adrian said, his tone like steel. "We've shown them that these invincible aliens can bleed, that they can be beaten. Hana, you'll lead the effort to rally the other species. If they have ships, weapons, soldiers, I don't care what, it's time they used them." Hana nodded sharply, her mind already racing with possibilities. "And you?" Adrian's gaze didn't waver. "I'll lead the final assault." The room buzzed with renewed energy as Adrian's words rippled through the ranks. Messages were dispatched to the scattered remnants of other species the Zorth had conquered, each transmission a call to arms. Hana worked tirelessly, her voice calm but persuasive as she spoke with alien leaders. Some responded with skepticism, their fear of the Zorth deeply ingrained. Others, emboldened by humanity's defiance, pledged their support. A coalition began to form, fractured but determined. Meanwhile, the underground bunkers became hives of activity. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, modifying stolen alien technology. The acrid smell of solder and burning metal filled the air, mixing with the muffled sounds of drills and welding. Adrian walked the rows of workers, his presence a steadying force amid the chaos. In the final hours before the assault, Adrian addressed the assembled forces, human and alien alike. The command center's lighting was dim, casting long shadows across the faces of soldiers who had lived through hell and refused to break. "This is not just a fight for Earth," Adrian began, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "This is a fight for every world that has ever suffered under their rule, for every species that has been crushed beneath their arrogance. The Zorth thought they could rewrite the galaxy in their image. Today, we prove them wrong." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room, locking eyes with soldiers and leaders alike. They see us as fragile, primitive. But they've made one fatal mistake. They've underestimated what happens when you push us too far. We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to make sure no one ever threatens us or anyone else again. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars. A roar erupted from the crowd, a sound that shook the walls. Adrian nodded once, then turned toward the launch bay, where the final wave of ships was being prepared. Hours later, the coalition fleet launched into the void. Adrian stood on the bridge of Hope's Fury, the human flagship retrofitted with alien engines. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems, the air thick with the metallic tang of recycled oxygen. Adrian's fingers curled around the edge of the command console as he stared at the alien fleet ahead. "Status report," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. Riker's voice crackled over the comms. "Squadrons are in formation, waiting on your mark." "Mark," Adrian said simply. The fleet surged forward, human and alien ships alike darting through the void with lethal precision. Alien vessels responded, their weapons lighting up the darkness, but the coalition was relentless. Explosions erupted across the battlefield, illuminating the emptiness of space in bursts of orange and green. On board the Hope's Fury, Marchand monitored the ship's systems, her fingers flying across the console. "Their formations are breaking," she reported. "They're pulling back toward their capital ships." "That's where we hit them," Adrian said. "Riker, focus your fire on their flagship's remaining shields. Hana, what's your status?" Hana's voice came through the comms, steady despite the chaos. "We're on board their command ship, heading for the central core now." Adrian exhaled, his chest tight with anticipation. "Stick to the plan. We'll keep their attention." Inside the Zorth command ship, Hana and her team moved with deadly efficiency. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and the faint, acrid tang of alien metals. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, alive with energy. As they approached the core, an alien patrol appeared, their weapons glowing with menacing light. "Cover me!" Hana shouted, diving into cover as plasma fire erupted around her. The air sizzled with heat, the acrid smell of burning metal filling her nose. She returned fire, her shots precise, each one aimed at the vulnerable joints Marchand had identified. The patrol fell, their bodies crumpling to the floor. Hana didn't pause. "Move! We're almost there!" They reached the core, a massive, pulsating structure that thrummed with energy. Hana withdrew the EMP device, her hand steady as she began attaching it to the core's surface. "Commander, we're in position," she said into her comm. "Initiating now." "Understood," Adrian replied. "Get out of there." The core erupted in a burst of light as the EMP activated, sending shockwaves through the alien fleet. On board the Hope's Fury, Adrian watched as the alien ship's formations faltered. Their shields flickered, then collapsed. "Now!" Adrian roared. "All units, full assault!" The coalition fleet surged forward, their weapons tearing through the unprotected alien ships. One by one, the Zorth vessels fell, their once imposing presence reduced to debris. Back on the command ship, Hana and her team sprinted through collapsing corridors, the air thick with heat and smoke. They reached the extraction point just as the ship began to break apart, the dropship's engines roaring as it carried them to safety. On the bridge of the Hope's Fury, Adrian watched as the last of the alien ships was destroyed. A heavy silence settled over the battlefield, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. "It's over," Marchand said softly, her voice filled with disbelief. Adrian shook his head. "It's just the beginning." As the coalition fleet returned to Earth, the battered but unbroken forces stood together, human and alien alike. Adrian addressed the galaxy, his words transmitted across every liberated world. "We fought because we had no choice. We won because we refused to surrender. The Zorth thought they could rewrite history, but today, we write our own. Humanity has risen, and we will never fall." The cheers that erupted across the galaxy echoed a single truth. Humanity had not just survived, they had changed the galaxy forever. The Zorth had made a fatal error. They had underestimated humanity. and now they would never forget.